What is up, you Politipop heads? This is co-host and creator of the Politipop podcast, Mike Booch, here to let you know that this following episode is going to be our housekeeping episode for the week of September 25th, 2020. We took this segment out of our Lovecraft Country episodes 1 through 3 analysis to bring you just the current events and our thoughts on them. If you want the Lovecraft Country review, we're uploading that separately in its own tidy little episode. Thank you so much for listening or watching or however you're taking in this podcast. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the episode. All right. I want to do 3, 2, 1 snap this week. Ready? All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Politipop podcast, the podcast where we read between the lines of your favorite pop culture media and discuss the social and political themes within. I am your co-host, Mike Booch, a.k.a. Lovecraft's Cat, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by my co-host, Ty.
Hey, what's going on?
All right, fantastic. Not much. We are getting ready to review Lovecraft Country, which is an HBO original series that just premiered recently. So it's still actually coming out, which is awesome. And it deals with the lore of famed or infamous, if you want to go that route, fantasy writer H.P. Lovecraft, and puts a little racial undertone behind it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. How's it going by you, Ty?
It's going okay. How about with you?
Going great. But
good.
That's just in my own head. I'm aware that the world around me is burning, but my altered and ascended state of mind at the moment allows me to not focus on those things. But I'm about to, because before we get into Lovecraft Country, we do have some housekeeping. You ready for this housekeeping, Ty?
I was born ready. Let's do it.
All right. So, in recent news, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, formerly known as the appropriating notorious RBG, she is a Supreme Court justice who has passed away.
What? I've never even heard of her.
Yeah, that happened, and there are a lot of takes on her passing and what it means. How do you feel about this, Ty?
Yeah, so we spoke a little bit about it off mic, but I feel like liberals are now using her death as a way to push undecided voters and leftists to vote, saying her legacy is on your shoulders now. If you don't vote for Biden, we're screwed because she's gone and Trump's going to appoint someone else. Well, guess what? They're already doing that, right? Mitch McConnell said, I think like an hour after her death, that they were going to be voting in the next week or so on Trump's replacement.
He was woken up right out of his bed, and
he sensed her death.
They were like, Mr. McConnell, it's RBG Delta, and he was like, oh, all right, he got it.
He's like Palpatine. He was like, yeah.
He was ready for it. You mean
yes,
his chair spun around, and you saw his glowing eyes out from the shadow of the cloak over his head.
No, Palpatine's way cooler than McConnell.
Yeah, Palpatine is way cooler than McConnell. Maybe a little bit less evil too, but
possibly.
But yeah, because RBG, she was actually already used as a bargaining chip to voter shame beforehand, when they were like, oh well, RBG is not going to last forever, and whoever gets in office next is going to be choosing the next Supreme Court justice and stuff like that, and in a way, it makes me kind of glad that that the Republicans are pushing through another nominee already, because that's not something that they can that the liberals can use to voter shame, and then before the election, because we'll already have another Supreme Court justice. But I don't know, just the fact that this game is being played with the Supreme Court, which are 9 human beings with very public biases, deciding on human rights. That's insane. When you take a step back from it, specifically the game was played with our last president when Drone Obama was in office, and they wouldn't let him replace Scalia before he was out of office, and
right.
And now they're put it's obvious, it's obviously foul play, and it's obviously double standards and stuff, but the fact that this can be done, like, everyone's pawns in this chess game, bro, and it's like, they're just the lower class are the ones who have to suffer for these other people playing their games. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we've been talking about for a while, right, on this podcast. Social class and how we're pitted against each other and we're used by those in power, and just it's another example of it. And all these people want to come out and talk about Ginsburg like she was some sort of, I don't know, Jesus Christ symbol or some great hero. I know she definitely helped push women's rights and things like that, but it was kind of almost strictly white women's rights. So there's definitely like a lot of stuff people don't want to talk about. I shared a meme on Facebook that definitely upset some people. It was her quote saying, "Kaepernick's decision not to stand for the Star-Spangled Banner to call attention to racial injustice is dumb and disrespectful," which is actually a quote by her. She did say that. She later recanted and said that she didn't understand the situation enough and shouldn't have commented. Which whatever.
Very well may be true, but why are people that old having to decide things for generations to come?
Exactly.
Like the fact that it's a lifelong duty is ridiculous. Like the fact that anyone wants to stay in any job for their life is insane to me. But
yeah, I mean, everyone should have a time limit, right? The president has a 4 and max of 8-year term, right? Why doesn't every position in government, in the court system have that? It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you look at people like McConnell who've been around forever, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's just it's really frustrating that you can't get like new blood in there, younger blood in there, and I know that if she had retired during Obama's administration, we wouldn't be in this situation, right? Where people would feel like the gay rights and women's rights would be in danger, because then Obama, as much as I hate him, probably would have appointed a much more
somebody
liberal,
who was more publicly
leans a little more liberally.
Even if they would push through like terrible things at some points, they would still be like, "Don't worry, we just saved reproductive rights." And like, this is wild, dude. It's like a reality TV show. It's like, all right, they won the fight this week for women's rights and reproductive rights, but what about next week? Like, it all hangs in the balance as, once again, 9 people with very public biases. Like, you have ones who are particularly Republican, right-wing conservative, and ones who are a little bit left of them. And then there's always like the one that's going to decide it every time. Like, that is, I don't know. I don't know how anybody could take that seriously.
We're talking about human rights, right? Like human rights that can be easily overturned by replacing a person in that position.
A person,
right?
like, with an opinion. Like, I tweeted out on the podcast Twitter, I was like, well, at least Supreme Court Justice Tommy Lahren will be pro-choice.
I was actually joking about that with someone at work. That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, because like Trump said it was going to be a woman, so like, go him.
Yep. That's so funny you thought that too. Yep. Yeah. It's just it's just crazy to be like, all right, so hey, if you're in the LGBTQ community, sorry, as of tomorrow, you're no longer going to have your rights because we have a new Supreme Court justice. It's like, how is that a thing, right?
Like a Supreme Court justice who like has publicly stated on Twitter, like, I will uphold the Bible over actual human beings. Like,
yep.
It's insane. I do, and I don't mean to use it as an ableist term. I mean, it literally goes outside of sanity. But there are some, like, really important cases that Ruth Bader Ginsburg decided, and those are like part of her legacy. In 1996, the Virginia Military Institute was the country's last remaining all-male public undergraduate college. But by the end of the year, that wouldn't be the case. And that's thanks to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said that the admissions policy of men only violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. There's Bush v. Gore, in which George W. Bush had put in that like he didn't want a recount to happen, and the Supreme Court voted on it and blocked the recount, basically, which is how we got George W. Bush as our president. So obviously, like, the bad guys won, but RBG said, "I dissent." Like, that was it. She wrote a note, and this is from teenvogue.com, by the way.
Christ.
It was really cutting-edge journalism. In 2015, you have a landmark case that granted same-sex couples the right to marry in all 50 states. As a former officiant of same-sex weddings and an advocate for LGBTQ rights, it is believed that Ginsburg's outspokenness affected public opinion. And there's a few more. But also, there are some times when she kind of let down individuals who weren't white women. She has a very mixed record when it comes to race. When it came to prison conditions and the rights of incarcerated people, Justice Ginsburg simply wasn't as visible. She wasn't the primary author on any of our blockbuster human rights and prison cases. When she did author a decision based on these issues, it was generally when the court was unanimous or near unanimous. Meanwhile, in split decisions, she generally sided with the more liberal justices, but she was not the primary author. In other words, she just wasn't a leader in this particular area of jurisprudence. In other words, she just wasn't a leader in this particular area of jurisprudence, but that doesn't negate her tremendous influence on other areas of law. If you want the full article, you can fucking read it in our show notes and sources. But, there's she has a very mixed history in regards to like native issues as well. Dating back to the 70s, and then in the 90s, she would like deny ever having presided on these cases, or
she never took their side. Would never take their side.
Man, and I've been telling you a lot off mic that I've been listening to Howard Zinn's history, A People's History of the United States on audiobook, and it is, the more I hear about it, the more I see that the system is a joke. Historically, it's just been built to further people with European features and fair skin. That's it at its base. And even in this world where we do have somebody like Justice Ginsburg, who was considered to be a liberal champion and a the last remaining good that we had on the Supreme Court in order to preserve human rights, even she was so problematic and one-sided in some things. That's the best we can hope for.
Yeah, and like you said, Ginsburg did some good stuff. I don't want to take away from that, but people only focus on the good. And I know we've spoken about Joe Biden on the podcast and how people need to know who they're voting for. People need to know who they're talking about, who they're posting about. And from my perspective, Ginsburg was very selfish in the end. She had that opportunity to retire and make sure her legacy was upheld, but I think her own narcissism got the best of her, and she didn't think anyone else could do the job as well as she could. And now we are in a very, very difficult predicament where Donald Trump gets to pick her replacement, and that's a scary thought.
I highly doubt that things are going to change radically through voting people out, because it's still so gradual. And let me go back to that book, People's History of the United States. From the beginning, people could run for office if they had a certain amount of money and land. It's just not meant, even if we do vote these people in, it's not meant for the common person to be reflected in legislature or government at a local or higher level, or statewide or countrywide level, federal level. It's when we talk about the Supreme Court, why doesn't it reflect today's base? Why doesn't it reflect the people it's going to affect? Why isn't it a multicultural intergender group of people at this point? Younger people as well.
It hasn't changed, right? It hasn't changed with the times, with the people, and that's why so many of us believed in that idea of change and wanting to be progressive, and that idea is becoming much more popular, because we need to change. We need to change something, because it's not working. Not working for us. Maybe it worked for the people who put it in place, right? The powerful, the racist, the rich. That's what they wanted. But For the rest of us, it's not okay anymore.
And speaking of people whom this system doesn't serve, today is the decision regarding the Breonna Taylor case, which I wasn't sure there actually was a case happening. A former Louisville police officer has been indicted by a grand jury on first-degree wanton endangerment charges for his actions on the night Breonna Taylor was killed by police, but not for her death. 2 other officers at the shooting were not indicted. The long-awaited charges against the former officer, Brett Hankinson. You know what? I'm not even going to read it. I know what happened. So here's what happened. Former detective Brett Hankinson, Brett Hankinson for all I care. He was indicted on wanton endangerment because of his bullets that endangered other people in the apartment complex, Ty.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty dangerous, It's so dangerous, in fact, that he murdered Breonna Taylor. But, let's not focus on that a little bit.
And an indictment isn't even a full-on charge yet. It just means that you have enough evidence to charge. Then there has to be an actual trial, and then there has to be a conviction. And it's just not going to happen.
How long did it take them to get the evidence for this? People knew the next fucking day, right? It's been, 4 months? Just, this is so ridiculous that it takes this long to just get to this point.
And the other 2 officers had nothing brought against them either. The editor would like to note that when we say officers, we're actually referring to 2 detectives, one of them which has been fired and has multiple sexual assault allegations. That was former detective Brett Hankinson, the one that we're talking about specifically, and another one of them was a sergeant. So basically, they should have known better. A little bit later on in this conversation, we're going to talk about whether or not any of them were hit. Former detective Brett Hankinson actually was hit in the leg by Kenneth Walker's bullet, and there's a lot of stipulation over as to why this happened. They think, basically one side is saying that the cops knocked, even though they didn't have to, because they're so merciful. They knocked, announced themselves, and then came in. Once again, this is in the middle of the night. This was around midnight, maybe a little bit later, but not past 1 a.m. Kenneth Walker, if you're in the middle of sleeping, just note that you're probably not going to hear someone if they do announce themselves. He says that he didn't hear anything, which is why he shot at a bunch of people coming into his apartment out of nowhere. I feel like you would too. All we have to go with as far as the whole, we definitely knocked, just the cops. That's really all we have to go on. So, believe what you're going to believe. Just wanted to add that in there. Thanks for listening to this episode and enjoy the rest of it. If you're listening and don't know about this case, please look it up. A young woman who was a first responder, I believe an EMT, something along those lines. She was murdered in her sleep at her apartment by police executing a no-knock warrant who had bad information. And it's taken this long.
There was nothing there, right? They weren't supposed to be in that apartment. They had no reason to go in there in the first place. And with someone dead, her boyfriend arrested, right? Because he had pulled a gun in defense. I don't think he actually injured or killed anyone, but
I can't say for certain. There is a really great documentary on it on Hulu, so I would say to check that out if you want more in-depth information. I think he might have struck some of the cops, or maybe they got hit with friendly fire, as we know, 30% accurate and all that. But either way, you charge in on, you don't announce yourself as a cop and you barge in, you're going to get shot at. Sorry. So her boyfriend, luckily the charges were dropped. But who knows if it ends there. There was, there will probably be some intimidation afterwards. But another thing I want to note is that in Louisville, Kentucky, they prepped the entire town for a riot by boarding up certain buildings. They did that in advance of the announcement of the indictment. So,
wow.
It's like they knew that it wasn't going to be good enough, or maybe they were preparing the people for something terrible, the worst case scenario, and they gave them the next worst thing.
I feel like they almost want them to riot and protest, because then they can go and point fingers and look, we're trying to give them justice, and they're still not happy. You know, like
That's
it's almost
true.
like they're
That's
like
what it
egging them
always has
on.
been.
They're
Yeah.
poking them, you know?
Yeah, that's what it always has been. And they go, oh, well, they're not happy with some little morsel, some crumb that doesn't even, if it was a Justice sandwich, it's the bread. It's not even the Justice in between the bread, okay? That's what they're offering. And then once it's denied, they say, you know what? These people are ungrateful animals. We do need law and order. Like, we told you from the beginning. They only want to destroy, and that BLM and Antifa, and they're all the same thing, blah, blah, blah. It'll be interesting to see how the next few days shake out. We're currently recording this on the day of, so we have no idea what tomorrow morning is going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, by the time this airs, we may see some interesting things, but it is what it is. I guess at this point we gotta.
Okay. Wait, do you want to make predictions and then we'll see if we're right by Friday?
Oh God.
Okay. So they've prepared. Okay, 3 civilians dead by Friday. I don't know if they're pro-cop protesters or protesting for Breonna Taylor, but I'm going to say 3 civilians dead by Friday.
Wow.
I don't know of what.
That's a bold prediction.
It is, but I feel like I've got good odds. So yeah, that is the thing that worries me, though, is that they've had time to prepare for a riot, so who knows how dangerous they're going to be.
Yep, and let's see if there's any anti-protesters that show up, right?
I'm sure they're waiting for it, bro. They're waiting to get there and be patriots, man. But yeah, so we're going to go into Lovecraft Country. Are you ready for this, Ty?
Oh, I'm ready for Lovecraft Country.